Ahead of this weekend's AFC Championship game, do the Denver Nuggets have one glaring mismatch in their favor against the New England Patriots? And are the Denver Nuggets facing a very pivotal stretch of the back half of their season that could have a massive impact on their Western Conference seeding? All things to come on today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel. You can find us at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're watching us on X or on Facebook, we love you. We appreciate you. Throw some comments down there below, share, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so that you never miss a moment with us. Guys, I promise you, you have not seen an archived collection of sports and media content like we have at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Tons to get into today as it relates to both the Denver Broncos and the Denver Nuggets. I want to start with the Broncos, who are, again, nearing their way toward an AFC Championship appearance for the first time since the 2015 season, and they will be doing it, unfortunately for everyone except New England, without Bo Nix. Jarrett Stidham is going to have to do things to instill confidence in his team and amongst the fan base that he can help the Broncos continue their magical season, which capped off a 14-3 record with a first-round bye and then one of the best and most thrilling Broncos games, regular season or postseason, in the better part, at least, of the last decade with the win over the Buffalo Bills. But that was a shootout that the Broncos were fortunate to put themselves in a position to win. And it took a lot, both from Bo Nix and from the defense, in order to get to that point. The Broncos forced 5 turnovers against the Buffalo Bills. And that was interesting because that is the one thing, arguably, that was missing the most, or certainly was the most glaring from this Broncos defense during the regular season. They are the only team, if memory serves, courtesy of Andrew Mason, to win 14 or more games with a negative turnover margin over the course of the regular season. And it's fascinating that it gets to that point because for the second consecutive season, the Broncos led the NFL defensively in sacks. They had 63 a season ago. They added 5 to that number in the regular season of 2025 to come up with 68 sacks on opposing quarterbacks. You would think that sacking the quarterback that much and being that disruptive in the backfield would lead to its fair share of strip sacks, fumbles, etc. But going into their last game, they were one above the 32nd ranked team, which I believe was the Indianapolis Colts, in the NFL in terms of fumbles forced with 12. So I think that game against the Buffalo Bills certainly doesn't go the way that it went for the Broncos. If the Broncos defense doesn't flip that script, change that narrative, at least in a one-game sample size, and turn the ball over at an aggressive rate that matches some of the other high-octane elements of their defensive strategy, from the blitzes to the upfront pressure and the coverage on the back end in the secondary. Because make no mistake, this New England offense, say what you want about a soft schedule and Drake May this or Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson that, this is a potent and capable offense for the New England Patriots. Drake May's deep ball throwing ability is among the best in the NFL. It's part of the reason why he is a bona fide MVP candidate right in that 1A, 1B territory with Matthew Stafford of the Rams. And the 1-2 punch that Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson present in the backfield for the Patriots, allowing them to control games on the ground. Ramondre Stevenson is more of a power back between the tackles, and Travion Henderson with 4 touchdowns of 50 yards or more as that explosive outside the numbers playmaker is something that's going to give the Denver Broncos potential problems on Sunday. Certainly, you would feel more confident about their ability to go toe-to-toe with Bo Nix at the helm. And so for Jarrett Stidham, he's already going to be facing enough of an uphill battle in that regard, trying to jump in at basically the latest point in a season possible for a quarterback to make their first start of the season. The defense is going to have to be able to give him some help. And fortunately for Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos, there does appear to be a mismatch potential between this New England Patriot offense and this Denver Bronco defense that should, based on what we saw against Buffalo, be very, very exploitable. As I mentioned before, the Denver Broncos have led the NFL in sacks for 2 consecutive seasons, most recently with 68 over the course of a 17-game regular season. Conversely, throughout the regular season and into this postseason especially, Drake May has been one of the quarterbacks under the most siege from a defensive standpoint over the course of this campaign. He's been hit 17 times by both the LA Chargers and the Houston Texans combined in this postseason. He's also fumbled the ball twice in 2 weeks of postseason football, which sets a pretty significant mark in a negative way from a turnover perspective at the quarterback position. So Drake May in this New England Patriot offense specifically is gettable in one way that the Denver Broncos seem to be over the body of regular season work we saw from a sack producing perspective, and with the postseason game we saw against the Bills with the massive amount of turnovers forced, very gettable at things that the Broncos have excelled at thus far this season. This mismatch to me could very well swing the game in favor of either team, depending on how it shakes out. If the Broncos defense is able to hammer Drake May the way that the Houston Texans and the LA Chargers have, and frankly, the way that they did by roughing up Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, the turnover margin in this game and the margin of victory, which right now sits at about 5.5 as the projected spread on this game, could very, very well be pushed into the Broncos' favor if they can just manage that specific element of the game defensively. Because Sean Payton speaks volumes about what he thinks Jarrett Stidham is capable of. It's why he's kept him around for 3 seasons, paid him multiple times, once in free agency and then with a contract extension, and has spoken glowingly about him going back to the 2019 draft where Stidham was taken in the 4th round. This offense is going to have its own uphill battles to face. They're going to have to get more rushing production out of R.J. Harvey and Jaleel McLaughlin. Jarrett Stidham is going to have to replicate some of the passing capabilities that Bo Nix was able to show with some of the best placed balls of his sophomore season taking place against Buffalo's defense. That is a problem in and of itself. But even if both of those things are accomplished, if the Broncos defense is unable to contain Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson and throw in the potential tight end mismatch that always seems to exist with Denver, as Hunter Henry is one of the more accomplished tight ends in the NFL statistically this season, this Broncos defense has to hold their own more so than they were able to in the last handful of weeks or down the backstretch of the season when things got a little loose in order to keep the Broncos in this game. And fortunately for them, the fact that the Patriots have left Drake May exposed to constant contact and hitting, and he has shown himself vulnerable from a turnover perspective, that seems, in theory, firmly in play for Vance Joseph's crew. It is time to hit the turn presented by The Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier outdoor golf bar and entertainment venue. With their miniature golf setup and heated patio, they have the perfect cure for your winter blues. The Denver Nuggets lost a tough one against the Los Angeles Lakers last night. This Denver Nuggets squad that has shown an unbelievable amount of resilience, tenacity, and championship mettle, the way that they've battled through injuries over basically the entirety of their NBA season, factoring in maybe the first handful of games or so where they were at full strength. And we saw what this team legitimately might be capable of in a postseason capacity. But starting with Christian Brown and Cam Johnson, then adding in Aaron Gordon, then adding in Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray having to miss some time, Jonas Valanciunas missing some time, Christian Brown. At one point, this Nuggets team played in and won a game where they not only didn't have their 5 starters, but they were also missing 2 key reserve players against the Philadelphia 76ers, no less. And the resiliency, the tenacity, and the championship mettle that they have shown by being able to have an above 500 record without Nikola Jokic on the court, plus all the other injuries that they've sustained to keep themselves right neck and neck with the San Antonio Spurs for a top 2 seed in the Western Conference, has been nothing short of amazing. However, last night, I think we saw evidence that this Nuggets team might be running on empty just a little bit. We might be approaching the fumes level within the gas tank, and it's going to be imperative, in my opinion, that they hold their own down this stretch of games as they head for a 3-game roadie with the Wizards, the Hornets, and the Milwaukee Bucks, who they just all faced almost in succession not that long ago. They're going to have to face them again on a 3-game road trip. And I do think this 3-game road trip and then the next handful of games here until Nikola Jokic is projected to return, which I believe coincides with a potential meeting with the Detroit Pistons in a best-case scenario situation. The Denver Nuggets need to hold on for just a little bit longer while Nikola Jokic is on the mend, coming back from his hyperextended knee injury. They've managed to keep an above 500 record up to this point without Jokic on the court, and they've battled through other injuries prior to that. But I do believe this coming juncture of the next 10 games or so could be a potentially interesting look back point when we look at this Nuggets season in the rearview mirror and where they end up in the Western Conference standings. Because again, with Jokic's timetable of return, we're talking in a best case scenario. And there have been whispers and indications that maybe Jokic is progressing faster than some thought, and he will be able to hit the ground running without too much of a ramp up once he's cleared to play in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks or so, handful of weeks. But the Nuggets team that we saw last night against the Lakers felt like they were running on fumes. David Adelman mentioned it in the press conference after the game. Then in the second half, they just ran out of gas. Because again, you're looking at a situation where you're playing LeBron James and Luka Doncic, no Austin Reeves, but still LeBron and Luka, and you have no Jokic, no Christian Brown, no Cam Johnson, no Valanciunas. Still, you managed to go on a 14-3 run to end the half, capping off that run with an amazing three-quarter court shot from Jamal Murray. You start 9 for 11 from beyond the arc to begin the game, and Jamal Murray gives you 26 first-half points. However, you have to play 2 halves or 4 quarters in a basketball game. The LA Lakers seem to double Jamal Murray and make his life a lot more miserable in the second half. He contributed just a couple of more points in the entirety of the second half. The Nuggets as a team scored 34 or 36 points in the second half when they scored 37 in the first quarter. Again, I do believe that what the Nuggets have been able to do, factoring in all the injuries they face, most notably to Nikola Jokic, who can hopefully return in the next couple of weeks or so, has been nothing short of amazing and admirable. And it's proven to me that this team is capable of things that I genuinely wasn't sure, in fact, was doubtful that they could accomplish, in the way that they were able to adapt to playing basketball without the sun that their solar system has revolved around in Jokic. And I think looking ahead at these next 10, 15 games, or however long it takes for Jokic to come back, this could be something where we look back similarly to how we looked back at the San Antonio Spurs loss a handful of seasons ago that cost the Nuggets the opportunity to have the number 1 seed. They ended up tied with the Thunder. They get down to the 2nd seed, and it changes the way that the bracket is held. I don't want to look back at some of these games as they've now dropped a couple due to a wall that they were bound to hit at some point. And I don't want to say, let me make this clear. I don't want to say that I think the Denver Nuggets are in any kind of drastic trouble. I think the fact that they are a top 3 and borderline top 2 with the San Antonio Spurs back and forth seed in the Western Conference is a fantastic and potentially probably best case scenario spot for them to be in. And I think if they can just hold on a little bit longer and not turn this little bit of a bump and skid into more of a precipitous fall off, I think that this Nuggets team can set itself up fantastically for the postseason, when hopefully you've got the reinforcements arriving, everyone's back at full health, and then you're able to go on a little bit of a ramp up or mini tear to end the regular season and see where the dice fall in a postseason. Because if one thing that I've gathered, if there's one thing that I've learned about this Nuggets squad, it's that when they are fully healthy, there genuinely is not a team in the NBA that they can't beat. That includes the Oklahoma City Thunder, who looked like maybe the best team in the history of the National Basketball Association to start the season, and have since kind of, fallen off might be a strong word, but they've come back to earth just a little bit. The standings have tightened just a hair, especially when you look at that 2 through 7 spot in the Western Conference. And I think if the Nuggets can just hold on a little bit longer, which evidenced by a 16-point blown lead against the Lakers last night and some of the performances we saw against the Charlotte Hornets and others recently. It feels like they're running out of gas just a little bit. And if we can find a way to just put a little bit, they put $10 more in that tank and get themselves to keep their heads above water, stay above 500 without Nikola Jokic. When he comes back, that effort and the effort that we're seeing right now should, in my opinion, pay some pretty significant dividends. We will be here to keep tabs on all of it for you. We've got the Avalanche in action against the Anaheim Ducks this week. The Nuggets have a handful of games between now and the Broncos game against the New England Patriots, which I'm telling you, I said it yesterday on the show, and I'll say it again. I'm talking myself into the fact that I think the Broncos can win this game. I genuinely do, even though everyone is justifiably counting them out. They're 5.5-point underdogs right now, and that could add even more incentive or even larger of a deficit come kickoff on Sunday. But this Broncos team has found improbable ways to win all season long. They are maybe the most surprising and unexpected 14-3 team in the history of the NFL. And I think that in doing so, they have validated themselves in a way and forged this mentality that is never say die, that is we are capable of accomplishing anything that we want to accomplish. And there really isn't anything concrete that can stand in our way outside of ourselves for the most part. A team that can score 33 points in the fourth quarter of an NFL game while also giving up points and still win, I think can manage with Sean Payton at the helm and a capable, potentially top 5 backup in the National Football League in Jarrett Stidham to find themselves a path to victory in an AFC championship setting against a team in New England who's just as unproven as the Broncos are. It's going to be a fascinating thing to keep our eyes on. We appreciate you staying locked in with us. Keep it rolling on 104.3 The Fan from 6A to 7P with Stokely and Evans with Mark Schlereth, Dover and Cecil, The Drive with Zach Bye and Philip Lindsay, and Denver Sports Tonight for you second shifters out there running things a little bit later than the average guy or gal. We've also got our variety of local, unique, original digital content like this show, The Rundown, like From the Nosebleeds with Joey Gunner, Orange and Blue Today, which had the largest show in its entire multi-year history after the game against the Buffalo Bills. It's the best Broncos content you can find anywhere here in the state of Colorado and beyond with Cecil Lammey and our guy, senior Broncos writer Andrew Mason. And you know where you can find all this information and all this content, short form, long form? Our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan YouTube channel at Denver Sports 104.3. Like, subscribe, and get to watching and listening, because I promise you, you do not have enough time in your current life right now to be able to consume all the amazing content that we have from our variety of analysts, writers, talk show hosts, etc. here at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. Have a great rest of your afternoon. We will catch you tomorrow at noon for the next Rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.